Ohio State ended spring practice in 2022 with a bang, with 60,000 fans in the shoe watching the boys play football once again. There were a few guys that stood out, and I mean, they stood out in a big way. And then there were some of those freshmen, and man, they played and they looked good. All that and more right here on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, April 18th in the year 2022, and I want to thank you for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen of every single day. Spring practice is complete, and I think it ended with a bang because those boys on the field on Saturday showed us they have been putting in work all off season long. Ryan Day knew, we all knew, going into the spring game, you weren't going to get a great offensive performance. You weren't going to get 500 passing yards from Stroud or McCord or Devin Brown. You weren't going to get that. You weren't going to have any running back, and there were numerous that played. That was going to get 250 on the ground and 2 tutties. You weren't going to get any of that. But what you want to get is a great dose of players showcasing their skill. Trevion Henderson looked good. Mayan Williams looked good. My goodness, Evan Pryor, you've been working in the offseason. We saw players on both sides of the ball look healthy, look strong, and look like they have been working on a lot of the things that we talked about needed to be worked on right here on this podcast. Ryan Day's offense still looked good. Jim Knowles' defense looked really, really good as well. Improvements on both sides. Alignments looked good. Players that looked out of place. Everyone seemed to be communicating properly. Everything looked really, really good. And as I think about how we are right now on April 18th, of course, tax day, hope you get your taxes done. If you're a last-minute person, make sure you don't wait till the very last second, but you get those taxes done so the IRS does not come for you. But as I said here on April 18th, many people are looking around the country and saying, okay, like Alabama had their A day, Georgia had their day, Florida had their day, USC's having theirs, Notre Dame's spring game's coming up this weekend. Everyone's having their day, and everyone's having their own takeaways about their teams and their own spring games after those games are played. And as I look at Ohio State and how they might stack up against everybody else in the country, this might be a team nobody wants to play. I have not been this excited about an Ohio State football season in quite a long time. Even going into 2019, I don't think I was as excited as I am right now. Ryan Day's first year as head coach, transferred quarterback in Justin Fields, going from Georgia to to Ohio State. So there were 2 storylines there that kind of had me a little hesitant to be all in and to be fully engaged, to get all my excitement up for that team. 2020, we all thought was going to be special, but then the COVID and things there were going to be a little bit different. So my excitement meter, I was just excited to have football in 2020. Not so much thinking they were going to go to the Natty, but saying like they can, but I'm simply excited to have the football. Last year, no, I wasn't there last year either. I really wasn't. No, I was not. 2015, maybe, but even then, we know going into the season, there were some questionable decisions made in addition to the coaching staff. And in me, I'm like, that don't make no sense. But this year, I get the new coaches on defense, the new quality control coaches, the new GAs. I mean, there's a lot of coaching changes and additions this year that might not be as many as normal. But this team seems primed, absolutely primed and ready to be special. And I think what we saw on Saturday from the offensive line, the defensive line, Eichenberg and Chambers starting at linebacker, the secondary that looks really, really clean and crisp, the passing attack that still is going to be one of those passing attacks nobody wants to see in college football, from the depth that we saw on defense and the depth that we saw at some positions on the offense. We're seeing a lot of things that should make us excited. And I'm fully all in. Like, I was all in before this past weekend, but seeing how some of the changes and wrinkles and additions and seeing a stand-up defensive end, either rush, kind of loop to kind of see maybe a delayed blitz and also drop into coverage. These are things that I think should have been implemented a long time ago. As I told Jeff Hunt, as him and I were there at the spring game together, it was nice meeting him. I firmly think this team this year, it's ready, man. It's ready. Now, I'm not saying I know we don't do this. You guys know that I'm really hesitant to go all in on something. But earlier this year, I went all in on CJ Stroud to be the Heisman Trophy winner, and I'm still going to push the CJ for Heisman campaign all offseason long and all through December until CJ is in New York, lifting up and hoisting up the Heisman Trophy in December in New York. Excuse me, my thoughts all over the place. This is it, man. This team is ready. Like, the spring game was exactly what we thought it was going to be. A lot of flashes of good plays on both sides of the ball. Got to see some depth, not death. Wow. Words come together now. I love it. I love every second of it. I know I got a question on the Twitter about the running back depth and running back rotation. Excuse me. We'll talk about that later on in the week. There's a lot of things we're going to be talking about later in the week in regards to what we saw during the spring game, players that can play, players that might be thrown into the rotation and into the mix down the road. But, man, spring practice is over. Recruiting, we got 2 recruits over the weekend as well. We'll talk more about them throughout the week. This is a great time to be a Buckeye. And this year, man, telling y'all, this year should be special. Get in, fit in, try to get to the shoe at least once or twice or for every home game throughout this year. Try to do it because you don't want to miss the fireworks and the amazing plays that these boys will put on and show off all season long. One of these days, my words get together, but for right now, we're going to try to slow things down so Jay does not embarrass himself anymore. Thank you guys for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of every day. Now for a big announcement. Starting Thursday, April 28th, tune into the Locked On NFL Drafts live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft with all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. And for those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On NFL Drafts mock draft special hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson of the Peacock and Williamson NFL show all week leading up to the first pick. You can catch it at Locked On NFL Draft Live, Locked On NFL Draft YouTube page, the Odyssey portion, Odyssey and Locked On NFL Draft podcast feeds, April 28th, 29th, and 30th. Make sure you're there, you're ready, you're locked in. There's a lot of good stuff coming covering this year's draft from the Locked On Podcast Network. What players stood out? What players, when we looked at the players that were there at the spring game, that stood out? We hinted at a few earlier, but there were just a few more. There were more than what we listed as far as who stood out, who had big plays during the spring. Let's go to offense first, then go to defense. Can't really hit and touch on, spend too much time on any player because there's so many guys that looked really, really good. Stroud, McCord, and Devin Brown. All 3 quarterbacks looked the part. Stroud looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Kyle McCord showed signs of improvement, and I'm telling you, Jeff and I talked all game long about some things we saw, and I told him, I was talking about McCord, I said, McCord looks better. He, of course, looks better. He looks like he's more comfortable with the offense. He looks like he's not trying to guess and figure things out. He looks like he is ready to play college football now. He looks like he is understanding things, and the game is slowed down for him. And that was very, very quickly. That was a quick observation I've made of him when he got on the field. It just seemed like he was more smoother and more aware of what's going on, not just on the offense, but also with the defense and making better throws. Devin Brown, keep it in context. I'm going to go more into him in a little bit, but Devin Brown looks good as well, and he's supposed to be in high school. He's still in high school. He's a senior in high school playing against guys that are college starters. He does not look like a player that's supposed to be in high school. That young man has something special about him, and I fully understand why he is at Ohio State Oh, and I got to say something here very quickly. I've been trying to dodge this for a while, but I can't. Give me Devin Brown as the better college prospect than Quinn Ewers every day of the week and twice on Sunday. When it comes to the running backs, I mean, it was kind of what it was going to be. You're not going to get much from the running backs in this game, especially when you're going a thud session to a full live tackling session to a thud session to a full live tackling session. I mean, you're not going to get much from them. But I have no complaints about Trevion Henderson, Mayan Williams, Evan Pryor, Caden Saunders was another one. I have no complaints about any of these guys. They all look phenomenal. They all looked good. Evan Pryor had a good run. Mayan Williams, of course, meatball, pork chop, whatever you want to call him. It's going to be hard to take that young man down. And we saw that over the weekend. Receivers, I mean, what can you say? The national media, myself, people that cover the team every single day. I mean, we're not going to shy away from how good this wide receiver group is. And they showed once again why they are going to be one of the better wide receiver units in the country. I don't want to go out on a limb and say they're the best receiving room in the country because your boy has not assessed all 130 D1A FBS level wide receiver room, so I'm not going to be a person to use hyperbole. However, I do know they're going to be one of the best. I would venture to say USC probably has a good crop of receivers out there in Southern California as well. On defense, JTT and Jack Sawyer, they're going to get their own little segment down the road later in the week. But these two guys together on the field together, no matter if they're going to be both hand in the ground, one's going to be up at a 2-point stance, no matter what the combination is, these two guys together will be able to terrorize offensive lines all year long. Jack Sawyer looks like he's a man that just eats deer antler spray. I mean, y'all know about the performance-enhancing drug that they said that Ray Lewis tested positive for toward the latter part of his career while he was recovering. He said deer antler spray. I'm like, hey, man, whatever that boy Jack Sawyer is taking, I want it, even if it's not something illegal, which I don't think it is. I was kind of just trying to make a joke there. Give it to me. I did run into, over the weekend, I did get to meet Derek McCord, Kyle McCord's dad. It was good meeting him. Him and I have messaged back and forth a little bit. Then when I met him, I got to meet Jack Sawyer's mom. And I'm mentioning this right now because Jack Sawyer's mom, when you look at her, you're like, you're not really surprised where he gets the height or the shoulders and things like that. Like his mom is tall. His mom is a tall woman. And so I looked at her, it's like, oh, that's Jack Sawyer's mom. Now, granted, she is wearing a jersey with her son's name on the back. It kind of was an identifier about who her son might be. But I look at her, look at him, it's like, I get it, man. Some people get it from their mom or their dad. Some people get it from their dad, but he got a lot of the things physically built pieces about him from his mom. And Jack Sawyer is going to be someone that we're going to love seeing all year long. The linebackers in the secondary, I'm going to close out with this. One of my gripes last year with this team was they were not on the same page a lot defensively. They were not a team that was really good at communicating every single play. And it showed. A really talented defense. But when there's a lack of communication, you're really going to get embarrassed. You're really going to have a hard time figuring things out. You're really going to have a really, really, really hard time making sure that everybody that's on your unit is on the same page. And there were numerous times last year, it seemed like the communication, I'm not putting this all on the coaches. Like, you can rip Kerry Combs all you want to. You could say things about Matt Barnes and Al Washington, Larry Johnson. You can rip them all you want to. Your boy is not doing this right now because when you're on the field, I get that you're trying to do what they teach you. But at some point, you got to realize I'm on the field. We got to figure things out. They're not out here holding our hand, singing and just leading us along and guiding us along like we're a kindergartner walking from our classroom to the bathroom in a single file line. We're not doing those things. What we're doing is we're on the field. We're supposed to showcase our skill set and showcase our skills to the best of our ability. One, I don't think it was to the best of their ability last year at all. And then two, I don't think they even tried. I'm sure they tried. But for you to have the same problem over and over and over, and one of them being communication, it's bad. But the communication was really good, a lot better, a lot crisper. And I know I said last thing, but I look at my notes here very quickly. Noah Potter's back on the field. You remember him? Do you? Because I'm not going to lie to you. I knew he had emergency eye surgery last year. I knew he had some things that kind of set him back on the field. But I forgot. I'm just going to be honest with you. I forgot that Noah Potter was still on the team. I knew he was healthier. I even saw some things on Twitter. But man, I personally, this is my fault. I knew he's on the team, but Noah Potter was a player that kind of slipped my mind. Marcus Circle was at the game as well, did not play. I believe he had a boot on his foot. Words are still coming in, and they're not being portrayed and said in the proper way. So bear with me. It's a Monday. Got snow on the ground outside. A little discombobulated, as you can see. We're going to keep powering through this show. But Noah Potter's back out there, and he looks good. I mean, he looks the part. Looks like somebody who will compete to be in the rotation at defensive end, number 97. Keep your eyes out for him. About 6'5", probably would guess by 270 pounds. I'm going up top of my dome. I have the roster right here in front of me. Let's go ahead and see if Jay is correct with what he said. 6'6", 275. So close. Very, very close. But I do think that Noah Potter will be somebody that could be a little outside, a little inside, a little three technique or a defensive end. I don't think you're going to see Noah Potter at all in that stand-up 2-point stance defensive end position, that jack linebacker. I don't think that'll be him. However, I do think that Noah Potter is somebody that will be in the rotation, could play a little D tackle, could play a little D end. I do think he's versatile enough that he's a Larry Johnson, a guy in Larry Johnson's defensive line that will be somebody that he will have a hard time keeping off of the field because he keeps getting better and better and better as he gets more reps every single day. We're powering through this show. You can tell the snow and the weather and all this stuff is messing with me, but let's try and make this show the best it could be as we close it out. Guys, the YouTube subscriptions keep coming in, and we have a deadline. We are very, very close to the start of the upcoming NFL draft, and the goal we set was 1,000 subscriptions by the start of the NFL draft, which is on April 28th. Make sure you go to YouTube, subscribe if you have not. If you know somebody who has not subscribed, to go to their phone, their computer, their tablet, their iPad, whatever it is, and subscribe for them. Help us reach our goal. It's a goal that's a good goal. It's a healthy goal. And I think that once we see what comes as we hit that 1,000 subscription mark, we will all realize, oh, Jay really meant what he said. He's going to try to get some big guests, some huge guests to come on the show to just talk ball, talk shop, and they're people that you will enjoy hearing from. So there's a few freshmen out here. I'm going to talk about a couple guys very quickly. There's three. I said a couple, but let's go with a few. There are three freshmen that, as I am there watching the spring game, that really popped off the field to me. One's on offense, two are on defense. One I talked about quite a bit. One I mentioned earlier in the show. And I do think these three guys, now one might not get much playing time this year. Actually, all three of them might not get much playing time this year. But if this is how they look right now in their first little stint of playing time in Ohio Stadium at the shoe, just wait till next year and the year after, because these three young men will be people that we will all want to see in a Buckeye uniform very, very soon. Devin Brown enrolled early, supposed to be in high school, a high school senior, but he's now at Ohio State. He's had 15 full spring practices. The 15th one was actually on was on the Big Ten Network. And let me just tell you, for a guy to be a high school senior, 17, 18 years old, just getting his feet wet, not really knowing what it's going to be what to expect when you are coming into Ohio State, the program it is, the standard that has been set, especially at the quarterback position. You don't know truly what you're getting yourself into until you get there on campus. And for him to look the part already, to look the part of somebody that is going to be pushing Kyle McCord for the backup quarterback position. Now, I don't think he's going to win the backup spot this year. I think this Kyle McCord, there might be a legitimate conversation to be had next year about if McCord or Devin Brown will be the starting quarterback next year after Stroud goes to the NFL, assuming he goes to the NFL after this upcoming season. Devin Brown's a player that if you're looking for a youngster, a freshman, an early enrollee to get behind him. Now, CJ Hicks is going to be somebody everyone's going to love. Sonny Styles is going to be coming to Columbus in June after he finishes his senior year of high school. So I know people in Ohio are going to get behind him. But if you're looking for somebody else to get behind, Devin Brown is that kind of individual, that type of freshman that has the things that you will love to see from a quarterback at Ohio State once he becomes a starter. I'm just saying, if you're looking for someone right now, get behind Devin Brown. You have my approval, and once you see some highlights and see him play, you'll quickly see why Devin Brown can be special while at Ohio State. Another was a defensive end, Caden Curry from Indiana, a guy that I have been writing and pushing for quite a long time. Caden Curry, I saw him do things in high school. Now, I did not know I was going to see him do some of those things in the first spring game that he played, but I saw him do some things in high school, one of them being the the stand-up defensive end 2-point stance, where you're either going to be rushing, kind of a delayed blitz a little bit sometimes, or dropping into coverage. We saw JTT, we saw Jack Sawyer do that stand-up thing, dropping into coverage. We also saw Caden Curry do the same thing as well in the stand-up defensive end spot. That's prime. That's perfect for him. And he looks like somebody that as he progresses and as he works on his physical physique, I think he's like 6'3", 250. Not bad for a freshman. He even said the first time he's done any ab workouts was when he got to Ohio State. Didn't really put much emphasis on them while he was in high school. I mean, you're better than everybody else. Sometimes some things get overlooked, especially when you're dealing with a regular high school schedule, limited practice, and things of that nature. But I get it, man. Devin Brown, Caden Curry, defensive end, keep your eyes on him. And then another one, number 37, as my guy Jeff Hunt said, he's wearing number 37 right now. He might not wear number 37 once he becomes a starter or moves up on the depth chart because seniority, more numbers become open, guys graduate, guys go to the NFL. That number 37 might be just a number he has right now. It might not be what he wears consistently once he's on the field for Ohio State. But Kai Stokes is someone was all over the field as a safety, did play safety for, I believe, a couple of years now. Not someone that's been doing this since he's been a youngster. But he is someone that when it came to the second and third units that he played with and second and third offenses that he played against, he was all over the field. I mean, rangy type of guy. Had a pass breakup. He had an interception, I believe was in the fourth quarter. Kai Stokes is a player that is rangy, and for a guy to come in, I remember all these guys are early enrollees. They're supposed to be senior. They're technically seniors in high school. So when you take all the context into account, where they currently are, where they should be, I'm just saying, Ohio State's in good hands. And Kai Stokes, Devin Brown, and Caden Curry, I believe all three of those guys are going to be great fits at Ohio State, especially as the offense evolves, the defense gets better. These two gentlemen specifically, Stokes and Curry, are people that you'll want to watch and see. Guys, we're out of here on a third. Wow, I am so out of it. Out of here on a Monday. Bear with me. I promise you, I am not under the influence of anything. It's just Monday. There's snow on the ground. The Midwest weather is drunk, and I know I sound drunk right now as well, but no, trust me, we'll power through and get through the next couple of minutes. Guys, thank you once again for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Now make your second listen be Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL defensive back Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. Just like the Locked On Buckeyes podcast, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast is free and available wherever you get your fine podcast. Monday episode, it was rough, but we got through it. I'll see you guys tomorrow.